So let's think about the 500,000 slaves that do come to America, that do come to Canada too, because this is the 500,000 includes Canada. You have 250 slaves coming in 1760, advertised in a Charleston newspaper. Now what's fascinating is that this cargo of slaves, they aren't simply just any old slaves, but they're slaves being brought in from that Windward and Rice Coast. It's very important to understand this, because this tells us something about these enslaved Africans that we just haven't quite caught on to, you know. And that is, here in America, in the Low Country, you know, from Wilmington down to Jacksonville, here in this place, from the early days of the 1700s right through to the Civil War, not at Magnolia here, we weren't growing cotton. Because this whole region was producing a half or more of the world's rice in a given year.
Wow. So
we were rice growers here in South Carolina and coastal Georgia, okay? And we were growing, well, we were the #1 exporters in the world at that. Forget about that for a second, because when we think about rice and we get away from thinking about cotton plantations and about domestic, you know, folks working as enslaved folks in the big house, birthing the babies and cooking the meals, think about these folks now coming from Africa and being brought here not just to do labor, but to provide the knowledge behind growing this incredibly profitable crop. And it would be one of the most profitable crops, if not the most profitable crop in America during that whole colonial period. You know, so when the New England folks were making money building ships and involved in exports and imports and as businessmen and merchants, down here as agriculturalists here in the South, we would be producing rice, and we would be providing the economic foundation that would make this American experiment that much more successful. Isn't that amazing? But think of these Africans not coming here just to do the jobs the white folks didn't want to do, but to do the jobs the white folks kind of couldn't do. Because these families from England, they didn't have a lot of hands-on experience growing rice. I mean, they were geniuses in their own way, and I don't want to take away from these European families, because that, you know, that certainly would be ludicrous too. But we've kind of written these folks, these Africans, out of the history books. You know, we know that what the white folks were doing. We know what the European, you know, or those of European descent were doing here in this area. We know of their contributions, you know, but we've forgotten about the contributions of these enslaved Africans. Certainly when it comes to rice. In fact, most Americans have no idea that we grew rice in America. Incidentally, I got to tell you, you know, although we don't grow a lot of rice in this area anymore, you know, America's still #2 in terms of global exports of rice. And right now, I think the #1 state for growing rice is San Francisco. Not San Francisco, but what valley is it in California? Anyway, California is #1. It's Arkansas, Texas, Missouri, Louisiana, and California #1. And I'm trying to remember. It's not Fresno. Sacramento, that's it. Sacramento, California grows more rice than I think anybody right now, and it's #2. We're right underneath Thailand in terms of global exports.